All right. Hi, everybody. Dan Rothert, top student athlete recruiting. Um, and I'm coach with Iowa ODP. Excited to officially partner with Iowa ODP in this capacity and helping as a partner, helping the recruiting process and helping folks land at right fit opportunities. And I'm an Iowa native. I live in Dubuque. I was a longtime soccer coach at Loras College. Had a lot of success there. Coached men's and women's soccer there. So, and then I was also associate athletic director, where I oversaw recruiting for the whole department. So I have some knowledge in that, a bigger, broader scope of recruiting. Sorry about that. In terms of recruiting, and today, we're going to do a webinar series. So, 4, maybe more webinars, depending on what people want and need and information they want and the recruiting process. We probably have all different ages on here from, maybe high school seniors and their families to potentially, 8th graders. There's a lot of information here. Hopefully some of it will trip where you're needed to land, right? Based on your situation. Everyone's situation is different based on age, based on priorities, based on, their needs and things like that, based on ability level. There's all these different pieces to the puzzle. But, what are your chances? Again, top student athlete recruiting. When I got out of coaching about 3 years ago, I wanted to help. I just saw a lot of kids that weren't playing college that should have, or maybe made some interesting choices in this recruiting process, and I was always baffled by it. And I wanted to help out in a different capacity. And so now I'm helping students from around the Midwest, a lot of Iowa players, a lot of Iowa ODP players, help navigate this process. I help connect players and college coaches, because I can call college coaches and they trust my eye, and I can tell them I have this player that could be a good fit for them based on what they're looking for, based on academics, social, financial, location, whatever it might be, and help open the door for those players. I do for everything from the starting of the process to getting a resume profile put together, which we'll talk about, highlight videos, going out and see. One of the unique things about me is I can go out and see players play. All my clients I try to see play personally, so I know exactly what I'm recommending to college coaches. That is a huge rarity, and really consult through the whole process from start to finish to reduce stress, and even at the end help them save money on college. I know how to navigate that process, especially from my associate athletic director days. So potentially, help clients. Most of my clients are saving, a lot of money, thousands of dollars a year on college by being able to navigate things a little bit differently at all levels. Doesn't matter if it's Division 1, 2, 3, NAIA, junior college, whatever it might be. So we'll talk about what are the chances. Again, this is a webinar setting, so you're just going to see me and my screen. If you do have questions, you can type them in the chat or the Q&A at the bottom. I'm happy to answer those at the end. I might cover them along the way. Again, it's a series of webinars, so there may be things we're going to cover later on, but that's fine. We'll talk about that. And then also, if you have other personal questions you want to ask, that send me an email, send me a text. My number and email are on the screen, and I'm happy to help and see where things are falling for you. And then if you really want to personally get into it, I can set up a meeting with me, where I can evaluate your recruiting and the direction it's going so far, and then tell you a little bit more about the process and how I personally help people. So that's just another feature. But I'm going to jump into it here, and I'm going to share my screen and try to talk at the same time here. I'm going to do that one more time because I didn't do it right. All right, now you should see my screen here. All right. Yeah, like I said, I was a long-time soccer coach at Loras College. I'm from Iowa. I'm from the Quad Cities, actually. Grew up in Davenport, and then and played soccer, and then obviously went on to college and played, and then coached at couple schools, but Loras was my long stop with, 22, 23 years there. A lot of success, 5 Final Fours. You know, won a few games, as you can see, and had a lot of fun doing it. And a big, the lifeblood of that success was recruiting, having the right kids for our program. And I had, obviously some talent, but I also had, a lot of great kids that just fit my system and what we were doing and believed in what we were doing too. So that's a big part of it. Again, I coach in ODP. I work with a lot of ODP players, and living in Iowa and coaching in Iowa, that's a big part of it too, is that personal connection to be able to, I want to help Iowa players get to the next level. And that's a big part of it. So let's talk about scholarships. What does scholarships look like in soccer? There's a lot of confusion with this, right? Because the sports we see on TV are football, basketball, these types where everybody's on, a full ride or not. So those are called head count sports. So football Division I, University of Iowa, they get 85 scholarships to give out. That's a ton, right? And those are full ride scholarships. That's room, board, tuition, fees, anything like that. Now they have NLI where they can make money. And then there's another 25, 30 walk-ons on the team. Now, those are kids that have to pay the full bill themselves, all right, but they might turn into something. They might get a scholarship later on if they prove their worth, those types of things. Soccer is different. Soccer is an Olympic sport. It's partial scholarships. So we'll talk about men's and women's, but we'll start with men's. Division I, 204 teams playing Division I men's soccer. 9.9 scholarships in Division I soccer. Now that's the max. A school doesn't have to give out the 9.9 scholarships. Just like in football, they don't have to give out 85 scholarships. It's a financial commitment. And some schools may not be able to do it. I know there's a Division I that I know that gives out one scholarship. All right. And so that one scholarship, they could divide it amongst the whole team. They could give it to one player. They could divide it amongst their top 10 players. And the other number of players, have to pay the full freight. It kind of just depends how the coach wants to divvy it up. It's up to the coach. So let's just say most schools are going to give the max. So 9.9 scholarships, so 10 scholarships. An average roster size at Division I is around 30. All right, so it's about a third scholarship per player if the coach decided to go that way. Most coaches don't go that way. They give proven stars more money as they get older. They might find a super big impact player they're going to give a full ride to, the next Mbappe or something like that. They can give it, maybe they give them a full ride. So now they have 8.9 for the other 29 players. And so you see how that gets paired out down the line. And like I said, not every school starts with 9.9. So the scholarshiping is a little bit different. Now, I will tell you this, it can be added to academic money. It can be added to some other scholarshiping the school might do. So, for instance, I had a player this fall, 4.0, great student. First thing out of the college coach's mouth to me was, hey, I like them. What's their grades? I told the coach 4.0, great, because at my school, 4.0 gets 50% scholarship. And I'm willing to offer them 50% from soccer. So now they're getting 100% scholarship, but 50% of it was academic. So grades matter, especially your younger players. It's easier to start with good grades and keep them versus, okay, I'm a junior and decide I got to get good grades. It's hard to, dig out of a hole and get your GPA up where it needs to be to get those scholarship dollars. So grades. I can't stress that enough because full rides aren't happening in soccer. That's just not how this works unless you combine it with academic money. All right. Division II is very similar. Nine scholarships can a max. Again, the school decides how many they're going to give. And after that, So it's about the same as Division One. Division Three does not have athletic scholarships, but they have maybe a little bit better academic money. They have different programmatic scholarships and things like that at schools, and endowed scholarships from alumni and things like this. They can get costs pretty low at times, right? Depending on the situation, whether it's every player is different. The NAIA is a different division, or a different governing body, National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics. There's a lot of NAIA schools in the state of Iowa. Clark here in Dubuque, St. Ambrose, William Penn, Grandview. I just named a few of them, but those are all NAIA schools, and they basically have their own championships, and they have their own rules in regards to playing seasons and things like that. But it's very similar. They have 12 scholarships at some NAIA schools, and sometimes NAIAs are a little bit different. It can be a little bit, they might have some of the Division threes and NAIAs might have huge rosters. And I said Division One, Division Two are typically around 30, but I'm starting to see rosters out there of bigger, especially at the smaller schools where they're trying to, sometimes athletics drives the bus. So if we have a roster of 40, we have 40 more students paying the bills to go to our school, and that's going to help our college out. Maybe sometimes the roster sizes are forced by your president of your college, says, I want 40 on your team. And so you have to have a bigger roster, which means playing time is harder to get. But they might be able to, maybe give more scholarship money too. So there's a lot of different things that play into that. It's a little bit complicated, but as we get into that with specifics, and we're going to talk more about the divisions in a different webinar. NJCAA is junior colleges. There's 200 or so junior colleges. They can be great opportunities, I think, to really, if you weren't really heavily recruited out of high school, or maybe it's a lower cost option. Maybe you're a late bloomer. Those can be really neat things, or really good opportunities to really get to the next level, or to start without debt, or things like that. So junior colleges and junior college soccer in Iowa is one of the best in the country. We have maybe the best junior college soccer conference in the country. I referee college soccer. The level of play in the junior colleges here in Iowa is so good. All right, it's littered with foreign players. I'll be honest. There's not many local players playing in those leagues, but there could, and it's a really, really good level of play. So all in all, there's 1,300, almost 1,400 schools playing college soccer. There's a lot of options out there. Women's soccer is just a little bit different. There's more schools playing. Title IX has it's allowed more schools to have opportunities for women's soccer. We see that in our state schools. University of Iowa, Iowa State, UNI all have women's soccer, but not men's. So there's 323 Division I women's soccer programs in the country versus about 200 men's. There's 14 scholarships because they're giving more scholarships because they have to, on the women's side, give the equal amount of scholarships at that school for women's sports as men's sports, right? That's the Title IX rule. So 14 scholarships. If they have about 30 people on the roster, that's about half scholarship per player, potentially. Division II is about the same, 9.9. So it's about what we saw with Division I men's soccer, about a third scholarship, 250 schools, another extra 50 Division II schools playing. There's a lot of girls soccer players from Iowa that play in it's called the Northern Sun Conference. It's out of Minnesota and the Dakotas. And we have a lot of schools up there recruit a lot of our players from Iowa, and it's a really good Division II option. We don't have many Division IIs around here, but some neighboring states do. Upper Iowa is the only Division II in our state. Division III, 400, about the same as the men. NAI, about the same as the men. And all in all, about another extra 150 schools playing women's college soccer than men's. So that's the scholarshiping. The division is decided by the school. It is not because one is better than the other. It's not because your teams beat, beat up on a team and or you weren't very good, so you didn't make the Division II. You can't move up and down like you do in European soccer, and relegation and promotion doesn't happen. It's a philosophy of the school based on money, how much scholarship money they're giving. That's a financial factor. If they give out a scholarship, they don't make as much money off that student. All right. So college is a business. So we need to know that. The other factor is how much off-season work do you get with your coaching staff? All of them will have a strength and conditioning coach. All of them will have off-season work, weight room, running, sprinting, these types of things. But how much work do you get with your actual coach in the off-season? That's probably the other player in what division you are. Division I pretty much is year-round, with a few weeks off around main study times. Division II is a little bit less, and Division III is a little bit less than that. So there's, a little bit tiers, maybe not as much commitment in terms of everyday practice than maybe there is at the Division I level from Division III. But I don't think, it doesn't mean they're not as committed athletes. I promise you that. So let's talk about your chances. Let's first start with the men. All right. Men's soccer. 450 high school boys soccer players playing. 40,000 college men's soccer players playing, and 13,000 of those 40,000 are Division I or II. All right. We remember Division III is the biggest division. And then NAIA, Division II or junior college. There's National Christian colleges, things like that. So, pretty small percentage is Division I or Division II. 7% of high school players go on to play in college. 2.8% of high school players play Division I or II. It's a pretty low percentage. 1.3% chance of playing Division I. I'm not trying to scare you, but I want to tell you the honest facts here, because most people I know, when they come into this process, they know of the bigger schools. They know of, Clemson and Indiana and all these schools because they've seen them on TV, or they've seen, they've seen Power 5 stuff is on TV for other sports, and they find out those teams are good in soccer. Yeah, I want to go to those places. All right. That's great. You should have dreams. I think you should, but we also have to have reality. And the reality is 1.3% chance of playing Division I is pretty small. Let's break it down even further. It's not just 1.3% chance. It's probably less than that because of this. Of those 13,000 playing Division I or II, 4,000 are internationals. All right. So now we're down to, that's a big chunk of it. 30% of the players are international. This is a soccer challenge compared to most other sports because it's the world's game. So let's be generous. Let's say every year there's 5,000 new players recruited to Division I and II together. 5,000. There's 330 million people here in this country, right? There's 450,000 people playing high school soccer. 5,000 recruited each year, because we're talking 13,000 players overall. That's freshman through senior year. So if I'm being generous and say 5,000 new players will be recruited each year for Division I and II, and you factor in internationals, so you take out 30% of that, now you're down to 3,500 spots. All right. And 12,000 or 1,200 of those will go to transfers. Right now, there's 2,400 players in the transfer portal. They've all said they're going to transfer. Division I, II, III, things like that. About 50% of those land. So let's say 1,200 of those land, and then you add in junior college players, which they don't have to go in the transfer portal, which is they just get recruited. We're looking at about 1,800 spots for first-year American players across Division I and II each year. 1,800. That's a really low number if you think about the country and how many kids are playing soccer, and want to play in college. So it's really difficult to find a spot and find a place that wants you. It's certainly challenging. And that's, where I jump in and help and things like that. But we'll talk more about it. Women's side, little bit less play in high school, 390,000. There's more playing college soccer, 40,000, or about the same. I guess it's about the same, 40,000 playing college soccer. Other roster sizes typically sometimes are a little bit less on the women's side. That's why it's 40,000. It's about the same amount on the men's side that it is on the women's. I think the men's was 39,000. There's more Division I and Division II teams, so we're talking 17,000 players at Division I and II. All right, so again, 9% of high school players go on to play college soccer, and 4.4 women's percent of women's high school players play Division I and II, so a little bit higher percentage. There's less internationals on the women's side. It's growing. It's becoming more and more of a problem every year. All right, but right now it's about 10%, or at least last year it was. So that's about 1,700. If I'm being generous and say 6,000 new players each year are recruited to play at the Division I and II levels, and you factor in, 10% of that is 600. We're at 5,400. You're taking the transfer thing again, it's about the exact same. And junior college transfers, there's about 2,700 spots. So about 900 more spots on the women's side than there is the men at Division I and II. So it's hard, and it's not easy. It's, everybody comes in, I want to play Division I bust, or, if I don't play Division I, I'm not going to play. Well, it's really hard. And I just think you have to have an open mind. And I think it's important to reach out to schools that are safe, that you can play at. I think it's important to reach out to schools, that might be a little bit of a stretch. And then you have your dream schools too, and see what happens. Sometimes you might be the right player for that place, and sometimes things work out. On top of all that, we live in Iowa. All right. And this is part of the reason I got into this. When I started this, 3 years ago, Iowa soccer is underrated. It's not the mecca where college coaches come and watch from all over the country. It's under-recruited. Again, coaches aren't just flocking to Iowa to find the next recruits when they can go to Chicago, which has, so many more millions of people in one little tight location, and they can see a lot more players in one spot, or, more of a concentrated area of soccer players. Iowa's always been a little bit of an afterthought for college coaches. You're from Iowa. Can you play soccer? Like those types of things were always out there. I was always up against the wall when I was coaching college. My team was from Iowa, right? I had some Iowa players, and we were competing with, the best teams in the country. And, how did this team from Iowa get good? Most of the teams come from, more soccer-centric areas of the country. We know that, if you look at how the sport's treated in our state, I think we all know that it's a little bit not as we would all love it to see it be treated, but it's getting better. I'm gonna look at these programs. So these are the Division I schools in our state. Drake is the only one with men's and women's soccer. Drake is the only men's Division I school in the state of Iowa. And then Iowa State, UNI, and Drake all have women's soccer. So I looked at their rosters, right? Drake men's roster. The only Division I school in our state. They have three Iowans on their team. On their whole team. That's less than one per recruiting class. All right. Drake women, they have 9 Iowans, 2.25 per recruiting class. The Iowa women, University of Iowa, 4 Iowans. That's 1 per recruiting class if you just divide it up. Iowa State has 5, so 1.25. And then you break it down even further, so it's hard. It's even in our own state, our best players you would think would go to those schools, right? And they are. That's not many best players, right? So compared to the rest of the country and even their team, if there's only 3 out of 30 are Iowans, all right, they're going elsewhere to find their recruits. I hope, Drake might have a new coach. I believe they're going to do some things. They're getting some more Iowans, or looking at some more Iowans. But I have a feel of where coaches are at. I have a feel of where the recruiting landscape is in the state and the Midwest. And I'll tell you this. Class of 2022, last year's seniors that were freshmen this year, less than 10 Iowa girls went to play Division One. 3 Iowa boys players went to play Division One. I like a little feather in my cap because I helped all of them. All right. So, class of 2023, I know right now there's four men playing Division One soccer next year. 3 of the 4 I've helped directly, connected them directly with those coaches and those types of things. So, are you with the top 5, 10 players in the state? Those are the players that are getting these looks. Or is that just ego? Are you really the top 5? Does the top 5 go? I'm gonna tell you this. I think the best player, my personal pick of the best player, and I'm not gonna name names, is gonna go play at a Division III school next year. A really top Division III school, one of the best in the country. They're gonna win, 20 games. They're gonna get a great education, and it just seems to be the right fit. And the level of play is right there. The level of play isn't all that different between the top teams of Division III, and a mid-major Division One, or a Drake or a Western Illinois. These smaller Division Ones. If you're in the Power 5 like Iowa, they should be really, really, top of the line. Those types of things. But most of the players I talk to, I know I'm probably not good enough for the Power 5, going to Indiana for men or going to Iowa for women, or I don't think I'm quite that good, but I'm good enough to play at a mid-major like a Drake or Western Illinois. Well, the numbers say a little, it's pretty challenging, right? And the numbers also say there's really good options at all these other levels. And I want you to know that. I coached at Lawrence. We were a power in the country for a long time. We would go play Division I teams, and we would beat them, and we would tie them, or we'd give them a great game, men's and women's. Level of play, to me, there's great teams at all the levels. We'll talk about that in a moment. But, then you throw in COVID complications, so this COVID year, everybody, you probably heard about this. Every player that was on a team in the 2021 season, school year, got an extra year of eligibility. Those players graduate next year, after next year. But basically they get 5 years to play, and that's made a lot of challenges in rosters, right? So maybe that player decides to come back. They don't need to recruit that year. Or a forward wants to come back. They never thought they were going to need a forward. That forward's going to, take that roster spot. Or maybe someone's going to go get a master's degree, and they can transfer and go get a master's degree and take a roster spot and help a school out and start playing in a new school. Johns Hopkins just won the Division III women's national title. They had 9 players on their team who had graduated from Division I teams and went and started their law degree or medical degree or whatever it was, and played that extra year of eligibility this fall. And they just mopped up everybody because they had, 9 starters from big time teams, that had transferred in. So it's making it harder for freshmen. That will be over after 2024. So if you're in the class of 2025 or beyond that, you're going to be in a good spot. It's still not easy. I promise you that, but you're not going to be dealing with 5th-year seniors, 6th-year seniors, whatever they are. Sometimes there's 6th-year seniors in these situations. I talked to a coach here today. They have a 7th-year goalkeeper coming in. So he's a 25-year-old, right? That's a 7th-year senior. Redshirted as a freshman, had a couple injuries, got the COVID year, and they get to play it. They're still playing college soccer at age 25. So it can be challenging. So you need to create a wide net and cast a wide net and have a lot of options. Other considerations, you know, the transfer portals out there. It allows college coaches to find immediate impact players first. What's a college coach going to choose? Are they going to choose an 18-year-old who hasn't proven themselves, had a pretty good high school career and club career, or they can pick up a starter from a national power who wants to get a master's degree at their school and is proven All-American? They're going to go with the older player, the All-American who's proven themselves, because coaches get paid to win, bottom line. And so that's complicated things a little bit. And, basically transferring is, you can transfer anytime now. There's no rules about sitting out or anything like that anymore. Like, you're unhappy, you can go, or you want to try something else, you can go. And that's made things a little more difficult. Coaches tend to look to the transfer portal first. They still have, they still want to bring in regular freshmen and things like that, but they're going to look there first. Playing time is another consideration, right? So, like, I was reading the stat, 25% of college soccer players didn't play a minute last year. 25% didn't get off the bench. They were maybe redshirted. Maybe they, a college soccer team may have 30 people on the roster. Well, the average team plays like 16 to 18 players a game. They never sub their defenders. They, these types of things. So if that's the case, there's some unhappy people, right? Or, you're sitting on the bench. Nobody wants to sit on the bench. So, look at the rosters, talk to the coaches, get in depth about, hey, I see you have 35 players on your roster, coach. I also see the stats here that you only play like 16 players. So how am I going to crack the lineup, and when am I going to crack the lineup, and how long am I have to wait? We're also starting to see inflation of roster sizes, right? So now we're starting to see big schools with, even Division I schools with 40 players on the roster. Partly because of COVID, they want to still bring in freshman classes. And I know they're going to graduate these fifth-year seniors eventually and things like that. Part of it's financial. Some of the smaller private schools need bodies to pay the bills and keep the lights on. They're going to have a bigger roster potentially. Maybe they have JV teams, things like this. And you're starting to see that even trickle into Division I. And then I see Division II and Division III and NAIA rosters with as many as 60 or 70. I'll be honest, I coached in this, right? I had 67 players one year. 67. All right, I had a full JV, they had a full schedule. But people don't go to college and say they want to be on a JV team at a Division III school. I'll tell you, I thought it made us better because we competed every day. But they're still hard to keep them all happy, right? I lived in that world. But it's, so know what you're getting into. Look at roster sizes. Okay, well, I see they have 70 players on the roster. Do I really want to go there? Am I really going to get a chance? Or is the coach blowing smoke and trying to get me here? Those types of things are things to consider, and things I help my clients with to make sure they know the real truth about the opportunities that are out there. It's a little video, pretty sarcastic. My buddy and I made it. You can have a listen. It's pretty fun. If it goes.
Are you going to play in college?
Yeah, probably D1.
That's cool. For who?
Either North Carolina or Duke. Maybe Wake Forest or State if I have to. I'm not sure yet.
Are those coaches at the game today?
I don't know. I haven't talked to them yet. I'm only a junior.
So how do you know you can play for them?
They all sent me letters asking me to come to their camp so they could get a better look at me. So they definitely want me.
That sounds stupid. They probably just want you to come to their camp.
Plus my coach said it's an NCAA that period and they can't recruit me until after July 1st prior to my senior year.
That's stupid too. Of course they can recruit you. I have friends who are sophomores and are committed to schools already.
I'm not worried about it. My dad's buddy said I can play D1 for sure.
You are a tool. Did you even send them video?
No, I don't have any. I think my coach was going to get some and sent to some schools randomly.
That's a pretty stupid idea. I heard they get a lot of tapes sent to them.
I'm not worried. I was all conference.
You are a tool. Don't you think most kids who want to play in college were all conference in high school? Do you have good grades?
I have a 2.5, and that's all I need to be eligible.
You are getting dumber the more I talk to you. What if you can't get into a school with that? Or what if the coach prefers athletes with better grades?
But I'm really good. My mom says so.
Your mom is stupid too. Don't you even want to look at D2 and D3 schools?
I heard they suck. I'm pretty sure I could play at any D2 school that I wanted to.
You suck. You know there are like 15,000 high schools and 1,000 colleges, so only the best players in the country can play D1. Have you ever been to a D2 or D3 game?
No, they suck.
You suck.
I've seen it enough times, I still laugh, right? I still laugh every time. I think it's pretty comical.
Are you going?
That kid made all the mistakes, right? And I think it's pretty satirical, pretty funny. But there's a lot of truth to things. He just made all the mistakes. Like I said before, the division is philosophical. It's a choice the school makes. It's not that you're promoted or relegated. Most people think Division 1's the best, Division 2, then Division 3 in terms of ability level. But there's a lot of overlap, right? The best of the best Division 1. I'm not saying my teams at Loras could go beat, Indiana or Syracuse, who just played in the national final, or North Carolina, those types of things. But we can compete with, mid-majors, lower level Division 1s. There's a lot of overlap in terms of ability level. A year ago, the number 1 team in Division 2 played the number 1 team in Division 1 to start the year, and the Division 2 team won 4-2, and it was the first game of the season. So there is a lot of parity in soccer comparatively to maybe some other sports out there. Some things you need to do: target the right fit and have an open mind, right? Be honest with yourself. Don't target schools that aren't good fits. Most of the, I wouldn't say most, a lot of players I work with, a lot of things I see are people overshooting this thing. They reach for, they reach for schools they can't get into academically. As a school above your academic rigor. If you're not good enough to get smart enough to get into Harvard, you're wasting your time. All right. Or you might not get as much financial aid or scholarship money because everybody at Harvard is really smart, right? Soccer wise, same thing. Everyone wants to play Division 1 and the highest level. I get it, but go to college games, see them. Like they said in the little video, watch how good that level of play is. You'll be, every player I talk to is surprised by how good the level of play is if they have not the first time they do it. Financially, target schools that are going to be in your price range. All right. Know if that's the type of school that meets that, if you have financial need, do they meet financial need? Those types of things. But, have a wide range, of options and have options so that you can compare and contrast in the end. And, what's the experience? What's the overall experience? Is it a winning team? Is the culture great? Is it fun? I think you get out of college what you put into it. Is it the right fit for you? I mean, those are things that are, making sure you get the right fit. Don't contact too few schools. You can't just apply to your dream school, your backup school, your safety school. When you want to play, you're going to have to go where you're wanted. Cast a wide net, diversify your options, different divisions, different academic rigors, different, things like that. So maybe you get more scholarship money, or maybe you have better opportunities athletically, depending on the situation. These prospects that reach out to a lot of schools, a wide variety, they have better results. All right. And often find their dream school is a school they never even thought about. I went to Loras College, right, where I coached for 25 years. When I was 16 years old, I never heard of it. And I only live an hour away. So sometimes you never know. And go where you're wanted. When people love you and they want you, it's going to be a much easier road. It's going to be more fun, and you're going to like it. If you're just forcing your way on a roster because you have to be at a certain place and they're not loving on you, it's going to be a little bit harder. Excuse me. Don't have a false sense of security. He said it. I was all conference. Big deal, right? All conference in one place is not the same as all conference somewhere else. All state in one place is not the same as all state somewhere else. That's the truth of the matter. So you can't compare that. Coaches are the ones that decide if you're recruitable or not. Nobody else. Camp invites, emails, things like that. That doesn't mean you're getting recruited. There's so many mass emails out there that look like they're real, that look like they're getting recruited, that they want you to come to this camp. They're trying to make money for their program too. And we're going to have a whole webinar about camps and showcases and things like that. But, I think camps is, you got to be smart about picking the camps that are good for you to help get the best return on investment for you in this recruiting process. And we're going to, like I said, we're going to do a whole webinar on that. That's going to be the next one we do. A quick side story. My nephew played high school soccer his freshman and sophomore year in club, and then he quit to play football. His senior year, he got a letter in the mail from a Division I college saying, "Hey, we want you to come to our camp. We've been following your career, blah, blah, blah." He hadn't played since he was a sophomore, right? They got his email off some camp list and went that way. And he's like, "Uncle Dad, I'm getting recruited." I'm like, "No, you're not, dude. You're not getting recruited." So they just want you to come to the camp and spend your money. And so they can make a little bit more money, because college coaches don't get paid that much in soccer, kind of just like the scholarship thing. And coaches go to showcases, tournaments, and combines with a plan. So, get on their radar before you go. Tell them you're going to be there. I'm going to be at this camp. I'm going to be at this tournament. Here's my number. I wear this number on the jerseys. I wear, orange cleats, whatever it is, and try to get your name out in front of them so that they come watch you play and send them the schedule. Don't wait until it's too late. I actually am starting with some seniors right now, and we're gonna land. I started with some as late as April and May last year, and we still landed. We found opportunities. That's another thing that can help with. But recruiting really doesn't happen your senior year. You need to get on radars freshman, sophomore, and even junior year. It's a little bit earlier for girls than it is for boys. It's probably about a 9-month window, or 9 months earlier for girls than it is for boys. That's just how it is. It's kind of gone that direction over time. Coaches think they can predict how good you're going to be earlier on the girls' side than on the boys' side, less late bloomers, those types of things. And so you just don't want to wait till it's too late. The next webinar, like I said, we'll talk about ID camps and showcases. Are they worth it? What's the return on investment? How do you maximize those opportunities? What camps should you target? Everyone's different. Everyone's got different priorities, but it should be a really good learning experience. You could spend thousands upon thousands of dollars going to camps. I want you to make targeted choices that are going to give you the best return on investment, so you don't have to do that and save yourself a lot of time, energy, and money through that process as well. In Damien's spawn and in the emails I've sent, Iowa, ODP, and IDP, you can have a free trial membership of my online platform and profile. You make a profile. It's kind of like your soccer resume, and you put that out there. You can put video on it. You can put your schedules on it and all your academic and contact informations for coaches to look at and send out to coaches. Also within that program, you can look at all the colleges. You can filter through and, hey, I want this major. I want to be in this part of the country. This is my financial situation. And it'll give you good fits back. Also has access to every coach's email and phone number. You can actually email and phone number from the platform. And then if my clients, the ones I work with individually, we can talk to each other through the portal, and we know where each other are at with the process and who they've talked to and where they're at and things like that. And so it's really neat. I have sent out if you sign up for the profile, you get kind of a tutorial on it and how to use it and that type of thing. But it could be worth your time to check that out. It's a technology program similar to other services that are out there. Like I said, there's other services out there. I think mine being local, being that I coached for 25 years and I can call coaches individually, definitely sets me apart. I know the levels to target. I can call a coach directly and find out where they're at with somebody, what they really think. Help you save a lot of money on college by knowing how to do that, and just reduce stress in the process. And so if you want to reach out to me about any of that stuff, my number, my email are on here. Happy to any questions that you don't want to ask in the group chat, that's fine. Otherwise, I'll stay on here for a few minutes. You can ask questions in the chat, in the Q&A. Hopefully that was informational for you. There's a lot of statistics over the last couple of years from the NCAA that I pulled that stuff from. So, I'm not making up numbers off the, anywhere that's out of NCAA research. And, the recruiting process, it should be fun. It should be enjoyable. I know there's going to be stress in the process, but, you definitely want, it to be a process that's, you live and learn, but it's enjoyable through it. You get great opportunities and you find that right fit where you can have you say that after you leave college, that was the best 4 years of your lives. All right, I'll hang out for a minute or two if there's questions. Otherwise, feel free to send me an email. Please, if you haven't done it yet, do a free trial on my platform. It should be in the previous email. I'll send up a follow-up email to this tomorrow with a recording of this. But thanks for joining me tonight, and have a great Sunday. All right, have a great night. I think all the questions have been answered. So